So if anybody wants to lean in, we're sitting you on an Ohio State chair right now, just so you know.
I'm okay with that. You know what? Ohio State University is one of my absolute favorite lower end schools.
The best of the worst.
Given our athletic prowess these days, I got nothing to say. So we're good. So how's
Maggie,
everybody?
Yeah, would it be helpful if we do a round of introductions, or how do you just let us know what works?
Absolutely. I would love to know who is here, who I'm insulting. Absolutely.
It's actually a roast.
Yeah, great. So I'll start. I'm Katie, graduated from Theta Upsilon in 2014. So now based in Cincinnati, and Region Information Officer under.
I'm Davidas. I'm actually from Pittsburgh. I graduated from Alpha Gamma Upsilon 2017 and then moved to Columbus, and I'm the Region H Finance Chair.
I'm Rachel. I've been around for a minute. Graduated from Defiance in 2013, which feels not long ago, from Alpha Zeta Rho, and then I'm currently the Region H Marketing Chair.
I'm Zach Beach. I graduated from Data Chapter at BGSU in 2017, and I'm an advisor for the University of Toledo Zeta Lambda and Section H3 staff.
Fabulous. And I'm Maggie Katz. I advise the Gamma Pi chapter at the University of Michigan, but I, again, still love Ohio State. So have spent much time with Alpha Iota. They're a great group. So I'm not about to insult. Wait a minute, I'm like distance away, so y'all can't get to me, so I can say anything I want. In that case, no, but I enjoy hanging with Region H. It's probably one of the outside my home region places where I've spent, the most time, partly because you're nearby and partly because y'all are really nice about inviting me to stuff. And pretty much I have no life, so invite me and I'll show up. Basically is
APO is the life. That's what it is.
APO is for life and APO is my life. So I appreciate it. I'm sorry I wasn't able to travel with you. Not to get into too much, but I actually got myself vaccinated. I'm one of the few people it didn't take for.
Oh no.
Because I've got lymphoma, which is well under control, but anybody with any kind of a blood cancer is suspect. I'm one of those. I've just made my reservations, so while I will have yellow caution tape around me the entire time, it is my plan to be in Phoenix because I have not missed a convention since 1984, and I'll be damned if I'm letting a global pandemic stop me.
We'll get you a bubble. We'll order you those like bubble balls.
That's exactly. I want to be a gerbil. I will be in there. I got no problem with that. Maybe I'll just like have bodyguards or something.
Ooh.
Ooh, I could have people like walk around me with those stanchions, like to get into nightclubs.
Yeah.
And, like, whether you're on the list or not.
Maybe
but
that might be less cumbersome.
There you go. But safety first. So I am being safe at the same time. APO is a pretty important part of my life, and I didn't want to miss it. I wasn't really given a topic per se for this workshop, and I'm sort of new to the fireside chat idea because I think you guys are new to it as well, so I don't feel so bad about it. So as a starting point, what I just want to do is you let me know what do you guys want to talk about? What are some of the crucial issues? What can I do? There's nothing off limits. Some questions might be a little more embarrassing, but hell, I'll answer them. I got no issues. So let me know what we want to talk about. What are your burning issues? And I'm sorry, I should start with our newest attendee. If you could introduce yourself so I know who you are.
Jason Jones, Epsilon Psi 92, alumnus of Alpha Gamma Theta Rho Theta chapters. past president, Central Ohio Alumni Association. Just name-
Excellent. That's wonderful, just fabulous. And again, I'm Maggie Katz, and nobody knows who that is or cares.
You are my pledge education book. Probably still in the pledge education
Yeah,
book,
I'm
right?
sure.
Do you wanna, my question is, what are your like 3 life lessons you've learned from APO? Hope you're ready for that.
Biggest thing that I've learned from APO is, it's gonna sound weird, how good I am and how bad I am. I have gained a lot of, there's a Carla Moran, who's a former board member, had a great saying that I love that I've stolen from her, but I always give her credit. And that is, if you're half baked, we're your oven. Talking about APO. And I love that because I was a 17-year-old college freshman. And I got to tell you, I was a mess. And I'm not being falsely modest. I was an immature mess when I started college. And APO was a huge part of getting me to a place where I'm still a mess, but I'm a much more fun mess now with a couple of skills. And APO, even as it helped me see where I needed to grow, and I still need to. I mean, I hope I'm still growing and gaining in everything at this point, but it also, so even as it made me more open to, learning new things, it let me know that, you know what, I'm not half bad. When I look in the mirror, I'm pretty pleased with who looks back at me. I'm not perfect, God knows, but I do all right and I contribute to the world and I feel good about that and about myself. And that's something we all deserve. And especially as females, we are so often taught to, you get an honor, it's like, well, aw, shucks, we don't embrace it, we don't own it, and we should. So don't get cocky, don't be complacent, don't be like, I'm the best thing since sliced bread, but be proud of who you are and be confident. So those are kind of the 2 biggest things, how good I am and how much more there is to learn. And just everybody can make a difference. And you're making a difference in your little corner of the world. And whether that's the whole nation, whether that's just your community, it doesn't matter. You're having impact. That's beyond awesome. Not everyone can do that. So that's, and APO isn't the only thing that taught me that, but it was a huge part. Something I'm really grateful for.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what my original question was, kind of how did you like being, national president, first woman, all that other stuff. But I got something a little bit deeper. Having been president and you've been out of office, probably about 10 to 12 years, what is the one thing that what is your biggest criticism of Alpha Phi Omega and what it can work on, especially as it relates to this post-COVID, more accepting society? What is the one thing you think APO should work on as a collective?
Without question, it is DEI. And one of the things that I get to do as Pledge Plus namesake is I get to issue a challenge to the pledges, and I'm still working on it. It's actually being kind of workshopped now. I've got it before students because that's the age level, and I want to make sure that I'm being, relevant to them, and I'm not speaking at a place that isn't, appropriate, and it's not going to be well received. But just from the get-go, when they told me this, my very first thought was, it needs to. I don't want my challenge. No disrespect intended, but I didn't want it to be like diabetes. That's a great thing, but I didn't want, that felt a little small to me. I felt like this is an opportunity. So what I started with, just before I even knew what I wanted it to be, it was social justice / diversity, equity, inclusion. And I've written up a challenge, and like I said, it's going around, and the theme, and you guys are the first ones hearing it, so shh. But the theme is better together, the change starts with me. That is sort of the tagline, and then there's a whole bunch of crap that goes with it. And what I have for my three pillars, basically, that are going with that are accessibility, racial justice, gender equity. Those are the three things that I want to see us working on. So those are absolutely, you asked me at a very good time, because I've been thinking a lot about this. Those are the things that matter to me. They are all very personal. They don't all apply to me. I understand that I am, well, every time I say middle-aged, Bob London says, how long are you planning to live to? And I'm like, shut up, Bob. I get that I am a privileged middle-aged white woman. So racial justice is not, it's something that matters to me, but I cannot relate to it. I am a straight female, you know, so the gender equity doesn't necessarily. Accessibility actually does. I don't know if everyone knows it, and it's not a secret. I just don't advertise a lot. I have multiple sclerosis, and I get around pretty well, but mobility is an issue, accessibility. So it's personal, but even the stuff that doesn't apply to me, that doesn't mean it isn't very personal and very important to me. So I'm sort of getting on my soapbox, and I apologize, but I feel, like I said, very, very strongly, these are the issues. There's other aspects to that better together, but you can't put everything. So those are the three that I have selected to work on and put together lists of potential projects, whatever, for folks. So those are my priorities. I think that in some ways we've done pretty well. You know, for example, we had our first chapter at a historically Black college university in 1947, you know, 15 years before the Civil Rights Act. However, just having people who fit, and we never did it to like fit the checkbox, but just having people of color, for example, involved, that's not necessarily inclusion. There's a whole, and we need to do better. That's my message, is to the extent we've done well, some things we have, some things we've done crappy, but we need to do better on all counts. And ideally, I tried to come up with some ideas for how we do that, but also recognizing I'm doing from an ally position, because I can, believe it or not, I cannot relate to growing up Black. No matter what I try to do, I don't even tan, baby. So I cannot relate in the least, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't speak on it. I just need to do so carefully. What are your priorities?
Oh.
I'm sorry, you wanted to say something. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, I was about to throw out something. If you get a chance, rent the movie Watermelon.
What, one more time?
If you get a chance, rent the movie Watermelon Man.
Watermelon Man. I don't know that I've heard of that.
1970, 50 years ago.
Okay.
It's about a bigoted white man who wakes up one morning and discovers he's Black.
Nice.
Yes.
Probably ruined his day.
Oh, watch the reaction when he sees himself in the mirror.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I wrote it down because these are issues, and I know these are sort of the popular issues, but that doesn't make them any less important. But I'm going to turn that question that you asked me, very insightful, thank you, back on all of you. What do you guys think the priority is, and what do we need to work on, knowing that there's a million things? But if you had to pick your top one or two.
I'll let y'all go first. I'll take
I need some time on this one.
I mean, I got one, but I want to hear from you first.
I think this is more of a structural thing. Like, our fraternity is not young by any means, but there are a lot of like social group organizations that just have much better structures and like education that all of their chapters take that is like really, really well put together. They have really good policies and talk a lot around, like we were just talking about prevention, around like risk management and sexual assault and prevention. And like, why don't we even like really talk about that as a fraternity and say like, we need to keep each other safe, like we're all brothers and stuff. And so I think for me is really like programatizing some of those things that like we see in a small level, and that includes like DEI work. We see in small level, chapter level, section level, sometimes region level, but we don't see it nationally. And I feel like all of our volunteers are frequently remaking the same thing over and over and over again. And like nationally, we could be doing a lot better job of that because there are resources, there are companies, other organizations have been doing these for years, decades even. So that's really where I sit.
I like it. And just so you guys know, I'm not ignoring you. Well, I am, but I'm writing this stuff down. I don't ever do one of these without paper handy because these are some good ideas. And I don't know who, I'm passing these puppies along. And what's nice is I got a really loud voice, so they have to at least pretend to listen.
Anybody else had something?
That's a good one. I agree entirely.
I mean, I agree with you on the DE&I side. I was on the reference committee at National Convention in 2016 that we changed the toe song lyrics, and being a part of that was really important to me. And I remember, we were sitting on the dais and getting to that piece of legislation, and before our committee had finished reading like our rationale for it, there was already like lines at all the microphones, and the first person to talk was, because of grammar issues, we shouldn't change this language to be more inclusive. And like that was a ridiculous experience. And after that passed, I remember our committee chair just had a lot of various alumni coming up to her, mostly women, saying, this is something really important to me. And it's something important to me as a queer person, to have those things more talked about.
And I have to say, I am surprisingly enough female. We only know that because I've got she, her on my thing. That's the only way I know. But no, the fact of the matter is, I've got an even different perspective because I've been around since 1980 because I'm older than crap. And I've watched them try to change this and and I've had my home chapter changed it. And even when it was against the rules, and my attitude was, until we're willing to pull a charter over how somebody sings the toe song, it's not an enforceable rule, and nobody's stupid enough to want to pull a charter over it. So seeing it change was nice. I grew up under men of. I, again, have been female my entire time in Alpha Phi Omega. It's just a weird, and my attitude is I don't care. I know my gender. I'm comfortable with it. Call me a brother, doesn't make a difference to me. But my feeling is I don't do everything just for me. You do it for the world you want. And if not anybody, because just because one person is upset, you don't change everything. But when you've got a significant group of people who are uncomfortable with something, even if I'm okay with it, we need to look at changing it. And so from that perspective, from the being part of a larger community, I was really pleased to see it changed. Although I have to tell you, every time I sing the damn toe song, I have to remind myself because I am so ingrained in the old, but it doesn't take away anything from the men, and it gives to the women. And I am assuming, and I don't have the perspective, but from a gender equity for people who are not, don't identify as male or female, it takes it off the table because true to can apply there as well. So I'm assuming that from a gender equity, from that perspective as well, it is a benefit. And those things are happening slowly, but I'm glad that finally they are happening. Yes.
To answer your question, what is my priority? This is going to come, this may come as a shock to you, then again, it may not, but Alpha Phi Omega needs to grow a spine. And what I mean by that, one of the things is I have noticed we are so averse to conflict. We are so averse to taking a stand and speaking out on something. I will give you a prime example. Last year, when George Floyd got killed and there was a major uprising in many cities, including this one, Brother President Rob Koop wrote a statement. Well, one, I was kind of shocked that he even did that, because normally Alpha Phi Omega kind of looks the other way when things like that happens. So I applaud him for at least making the effort. However, when he wrote that statement, he wrote it in such a way that it really didn't address the core issue. He spoke around it. And that disturbed me, because it just seems like, again, it was more to this, it more served, it acknowledged the problem, but it did it in a very milquetoast, non-offensive way. Now, mind you, I have nothing against Rob, Brother Rob as a person. He has been a great president and a great leader, but sometimes we need to be bold. And with you talking about these initiatives, you know, about DEI and social justice, sometimes you need to look things in the eye and call it what it is, rather than worrying about not offending someone. And again, we always try to play it safe, but Alpha Phi Omega has never been bold.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I hope this does not sound defensive, because I'm not feeling defensive about it, but I do want to provide some context. One of the things, like Alpha Phi Omega, in order to maintain, for example, our nonprofit status, we can't get political. What that means is we can't support a candidate, but we absolutely can and should push voter registration. So there's a line we have to walk. So some of it is that, but at the same, and again, at the same time, I'm not disagreeing with you. Matter of fact, one of the statements that I've made as I'm putting together my challenge has been, if you're going to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. And that's, I think, what you're talking about. And I absolutely agree. And I would like to see us be a little more forward. I know I've had to walk the line trying to balance what is getting political. When I put my list of things to do, I actually debated whether, participating in protest marches could go on there. And it's not, and maybe that's me being too milquetoast, but I tried to kind of work around it. But I will also tell you, not to sound like I'm trying to make myself sound good, but I've been on some protest marches, because individually I can do whatever the hell I want. But representing the fraternity, one has to be a little concerned with our nonprofit status and those kinds of things. And our audience, I will admit that when I put my thing together, I told you the 3 pillars that I have. It was racial justice, gender equity, accessibility. Maybe it's me wimping out. I moved accessibility to the first one because, frankly, it's the most user-friendly. It's the least likely to offend of the 3. And I thought, for the people who are going to get upset about me, putting this out there, I should put that one first, because it's going to go down better. And I'm not sure if that's me being a smart marketing person or if that's me being a coward. And I'm open to input from either side. My feeling is you know what I mean? I'm not trying to make excuses, and I'm certainly not trying to minimize, Jason, what you're saying, because I totally agree with you. But when you're dealing with a national organization, some of these considerations, I know I make them.
Let me throw this out real quick. I have heard the rationale about the nonprofit status jeopardizing this. However, I know for a fact there are other organizations who, in the same vein as ours, who go out there and they do social action in the name of the organization, and they have never, and their nonprofit status has never been called into question, because social, I mean, if we were like promoting a candidate or pushing legislation, then yes, that's crossing the line. But pushing social justice and speaking out would not endanger. If that was
I agree.
the organization would have been going a long time ago.
Yeah, no, and you are not wrong. One of the things, and I think it's the point, it actually goes into the structure nationally point that was, with education, that was also made. What we have done, I had my home chapter kind of come to me, I advise them and say, kind of what can we do? And the word was, you do whatever you want, you put out a statement. Absolutely, we have not done as much nationally. You're right, Rob's statement was already more forward than we usually do. We're getting used to it. But a lot of individual chapters did, and something that people don't necessarily see is we pushed that, we encouraged that. And when people said, we want to, are we going to get in trouble? It was like, oh, hell no. Absolutely go. And so a lot of chapters did. And I'm not, in no way, shape, or form am I trying to say we've done enough. And that's one of the challenges that I've had with my challenge is, how do I say enough without being too with the tone and the balance being off, and honestly being aware of the fact that I'm in a privileged position. And on the one hand, that gives me a greater obligation to speak on it because I am part of the majority and definitely very privileged in a lot of ways. And yet the other side of it is it can come off as very condescending. And just to be blunt, I don't want to come off condescending or like the great white hope. That's not appropriate. And so I've been running the language by a whole lot of people to make sure that what I'm saying, my sincerity, and not just people who know me, but people who don't know me, since most of the people reading my stuff aren't going to know who the hell I am and know whatever. It's a tough issue, and it's a scary, and I don't know, as an individual, I'm lucky that I have some people in my life that I can ask and go, is this tone deaf? Is this whatever? I was, when I was on one of my, and by the way, my marches, I do them in my car because I'm lazy. But a whole bunch of people, and one of them were raising their hand in solidarity as I drove by, and I literally had to ask some friends of color of mine, am I allowed to do that? Is that the kind of thing where it's appropriate to show solidarity, or is that tone deaf because I'm this white privileged chick? And how do I best respond when I'm driving down a road and people raise their, people of color raise their hand to me? What am I, and maybe that sounds stupid, but I don't want to be inappropriate. I don't want to inadvertently, what's the right way to handle it? It's a tough world for all of us. I don't mean to say, my problems are very much first world problems. I absolutely get that, but it is tough, and we need some education, and yet it's unfair of me to say, oh, you are the only person of color in the room, educate us. And while you're at it, talk to us about, and those of you who are, gender issues, it's educate us. That's not fair either. So how do you balance so that we are hearing the voices and learning what we need to learn and knowing how to do it? And yes, we need to do it at a more national level. I think that's a really important point for this and other things. So how are we, political correctness has gone off the rails, and we are so concerned with not offending anybody. And yet, so I get that. At the same time, if we ignore that, we can be really damn offensive. So like anything, it's balance. And I would agree, nationally, we have not struck the right balance. We are working on it, though. We have I don't know how much you know about our national DEI committee. The chair of that, Candace Solomon Struts, I know very well because she's a volunteer. She grew up under me. She's one of my people. Oh. And I adore her. And she is somebody, she's not a bull in a china shop, but she will not be ignored. and she is not namby-pamby, and she will push back and she will speak to power and all those great things. And she's got the ear. People are listening. In the past, we've had some folks involved in that stuff who were tokens. She is not. She would not allow herself to be. And full credit to the leadership. Rob Koop, Bob London, they don't want her to be. So, I mean, the board wants her, you know, to be. We need to do more. I think we have been, you know, I was looking at, I think Bob London has his on his Zoom stuff too. And I know that's a minor thing, but I am told by people who are, for whom gender equity is a much more personal matter, that that small thing actually means a lot to people, because it says, I see you and I respect that there is. I actually have a line in my challenge that says, growing up, growing up, I thought there were two genders. I realize now that I was wrong. And I just put it right out there as that. I grew up in a different era. I'm a whole different generation than y'all are, because I'm old. You know, we're all learning and getting educated, and there is more support for it. We're trying to do better. We are so not there yet. Do you feel like we're at least trying? I mean, honestly, tell me, any of you, you all care about these issues.
Well, I think it's, as you said, it's difficult to strike the right balance. You want to use the right language and you don't want to say anything wrong. But I definitely agree with Jason that, like, everything's politicized nowadays, right? Voting's politicized and vaccines are politicized. So if we decide not to take a stance on anything, then pretty soon we can't do voting registration drives anymore. Like, we just can't bow to some of that pressure, and the pressure is going to come. I think we have to be prepared for it. But I think that a focus on DE&I is a good first step. And being as bold as possible while striking that balance, I hear you there, is going to be really important. We can't water it down so that it's palatable for everyone, because we're not going to get anywhere. And I'm sure that your intent is really, really to move this mountain. And I think with the younger generation, I hope that it'll be an easy fight to have. And I think everyone is starting to see things that maybe they didn't realize because of their privilege before. And I hope it will be an easy fight, but we do have to be prepared for the blowback when it comes, and still stand strong.
Well, we've done that before. I mean, and I kind of felt like it seemed a little bit more, I would say, like, that we were progressive maybe in like the 70s era, and then we've just kind of dropped off. And to that point, I mean, we know, like, we've been on the floor when they've changed the toast song, when they've done other things like that, and it is contentious. You know, when we were talking about like our affiliation with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and all that sort of stuff, like, it got intense, and yet we were still able to move forward in a good way. Maggie, I'm curious as to like why no protests, because I think like protests and demonstrations cover a lot, like a breadth of identities and of experiences and of political beliefs and everything. And so I'm curious as to like why it sounds like you intentionally were like, I'm gonna pull that off. I'm curious as to like why you, like, what was the rationale behind that, or just like, as we're engaged in this conversation, if it's maybe shifted your view on that, like what, you know, like what challenges or what things you want to promote or recommend for folks?
That's actually a really good question. And I am revising this, and none of you guys have, as an aside, none of you are on my, hey, review this, you know, list. But when it comes out, it's going to be, if any of you have any thoughts, because it's not going to be my only communication on this, I would welcome your thoughts. But I was probably being cautious. You absolutely have me rethinking it. And one of the things, I don't know that I want to put it on the sample, because I don't know that it qualifies as a sample service project per se. And by the way, the sample, it's just like, I've got like 6 or 7 samples. It's not meant to be an all-inclusive. It's just to give an idea. So I couldn't include anything, but maybe for example, one of the things I put, and I'm literally rewriting this as we are chatting, maybe I put in there some reference to the fact that, you know, I did a couple of Black Lives Matter marches. And again, not trying to be like, look at me, you know, the woke white old person, but as a way of throwing it out there as an option, get into people's heads, but in a way that, because I'm not sure, and nobody said to me, oh, you got to take that out. It's probably me being overly cautious. Maybe that's a way to get it in there without beating anybody on the head. Because what I don't want, and actually I'm not as worried about our students, because most of our students are pretty,
Yeah, definitely.
whatever. I mean, so what do you guys think? Is that a good?
No, I would, I guess the thing is, to your point, you can be bold, but you don't have to be a bull in a china shop and be reckless either.
Mm-hmm.
But it does no one any favors if we continue to how can I put it, get caught up in paralysis through analysis.
Absolutely.
So sometimes we just have to take a stand, tell our society, this is what we believe in and this is what we don't believe in, and let the chips fall where they may. Because the fact of the matter is, right now, we are in a very politically polarized society right now, and somebody's feelings are going to get hurt one way or another. Even if we push COVID-19 vaccinations, I guarantee you someone's going to get offended.
Yeah.
Well, and absolutely, and what pisses me off, now I'm going off on my little small rant, is when did government become about winning and losing and not about governing? Damn it. Even like some of the, you know, I happen to be pretty much a knee-jerk liberal. And so I was not a big fan of like either Bush administrations, but you know what? They were decent human beings who wanted to do well by this country. I just disagree vehemently with most of what they thought was best for this country. I can respect that. They were about governing. Even the evil Dick Cheney genuinely wanted, well, I'm sorry, I'm just going off the rails now.
This is
to do what was best. Like I said, his just best was diametrically opposed to virtually everything I thought was best. That has been replaced by a winning and losing attitude, and that frankly pisses me off royally. I cannot, and I think he's not the best thing in the world necessarily. Could have been some better candidates. Biden was not the one I supported starting this whole thing, but at least he's a good man who wants to do good. I actually agree with much of but at least he's trying to govern, he's not trying to win. And that is the huge, and we got rid of what's his name, but there's still too many, you know, McConnell, whatever, who are still all about winning. And that just, even if they were about winning with philosophies that I supported, I would not support that. But I happen to disagree with most of, because they're a bunch of old white men who are stupid. Not all old white men are stupid, but these ones are. I'm sorry. I got a little political.
Apologize.
Maggie.
Have you thought about, this is even just for folks who are working with chapters, thinking about service to university through advocating for a policy change? So that fits really well within, it could follow with that like demonstration, like whatever. But like that falls in with accessibility, racial justice, and gender equity. And I think especially around like gender inclusive housing on college campuses, or like removing like legal names or that sort of stuff. Like there's lots of policy that has really big impact that the student voice would be really cool for. And I think it removes some of that like political, large organizational nonsense versus like it's truly a service to the university around like DEI work policy.
The answer is yes, I have like considered that, and I'm actually being rude now again, consistently, because I'm pulling up my copy of, because of course it's all electronic, of what I sent out, and I tried to put some stuff in there, sort of in that general vein. I mostly went with a lot of the stuff, like for each of them was basically put together like a symposium on your campus to educate on these issues, which is not what you're talking. It's a half step there.
Yeah.
It's sort of in the same idea. So I am, okay, I want to see what other wording I have there, if there's other stuff. And again, that is definitely on my list as a possibility. Okay. Not, you know what, that is a great, basically a call to people to review, learn and review your campus policies on DEI issues and suggest, and advocate for change where appropriate.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and that is something that absolutely can be added to I like that.
That's where that's where a lot of like the action comes from with DEI work is in your policies and procedures. And like, that's not all of the work, but that's a good bit of the work. It provides, your actual support and access and such.
Okay, I'm writing that down because it actually sounded fairly good and I don't want to lose my words because I'm senile. Okay. And I like the use, I'm intentionally using the word advocate because it's more action oriented, and I like that. And I think that is very central to what you were saying. You know what? This is funny because I did not expect this session to be a help Maggie work on her challenge.
This is great.
I appreciate, I hope you guys are getting some value, and for whatever it's worth, not that what I'm going to do is going to change the mood, but I actually have a line in there that says, I realize that I'm very privileged and I am hoping to use that privilege to help move the needle on these important issues. And so I don't know that I can, but I'm at least going to try. So this is very helpful for me, and it's going to make me look way more woke. Am I still allowed to use that word, or is that out of fashion? Way more woke than we know me to be. Because again, old suburban white broad. I hope you can forgive me that. Kind of like when my niece came out to me, and so the big topic of conversation with her sister is, we still love you even though you're straight. And I actually reference in there the fact that, that's part of what made this, it was always important, but part of what made this more personal for me was my niece coming out. But I also, one of my lines in there is, interesting how her sister never had to come out as straight. And that's not right. So, okay, off my soapbox again, although we're talking about my soapbox, so I don't know how long I can stay off it. All right, what else we got, folks? Any questions, thoughts, concerns? And by the way, as we're talking on this, if any of what I'm saying sounds stupid, call me on it, for God's sake. I am not always right, and I'm trying my best. But I want to be surrounded by people who will tell me to go to hell when they think I need to hear it, because at times we all need to hear it. And that's part of what you're talking about, Jason, and everybody's been talking about. Be bold. I like that. That's sort of sticking in my head, and I get little mantras for myself that are sort of and I think be bold is going to stick around for a little bit.
This is a great, I will say this is a great start I think we got a ways to go. And I know part of it is just by change. I think we need to change how can I put it? The culture, the mentality. I think once that starts to take hold, then we might be able to be a little bit more bolder in some of this stuff. Because like I said, which is to say, for Alpha Phi Omega, this is new. Social justice, DEI, this is uncharted territory. I understand we've never been here before, but now we're at a place that in our society, you can't avoid it. You can no longer avoid it. So we need to figure out how are we going to go about it. And again, we're not trying to be reckless or disrespectful, but we can't be timid let me give you another example. And it's not so much a social justice thing, but it kind of gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. One of the universities in Pennsylvania, I can't remember the name, it's somethingburg, but the university has banned all Greek life. Now, Alpha Omega, as you know, is not Greek, but because it has Greek letters, it's being put in the crossfire. From what I understand, the chapter is being told, keep your head down, don't make waves. My question is, okay, why? Again, aversion to conflict, don't avoid it. Why is it, so it's almost like, okay, just look the other way. Again, why are we being timid and bold? Why can't we just say to the university, we're not part of the problem? Why are we being, we want to be sure that we can stay on campus. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And frankly, and I've long felt like the naming thing, I'm a professional fundraiser. We used to be called fundraisers. Then they decided fundraiser was a dirty word, got too much of a negative association. They started calling us development officers. Then people started getting wise to development officer. And so they started calling us advancement. And I'm like, and there are certain words that have such meaning and such vitriol attached to them that they should never be used. There are certain words that I, as a white person, can never say. And I've had people of color say, we know you, if you said it, we wouldn't care. Hell no, I'd care. There are words but in general, my philosophy is stop just changing the words. Can we, in fact, change the association with them and stop being stupid worrying about words? It's that sort of philosophy. Can we stop saying all fundraisers are bad? No, they're not. Let's put it in a context, not just change what we call them, kind of thing. And so I get that. And it's obviously there are ones that are, I picked the fundraiser one because it's an example that isn't going to touch the third rail. And, sometimes you do have to touch those rails and get some, again, you got to break some eggs to make some omelets, but not always. It's finding a balance. I think that Alpha Phi Omega has always had the intention. I mean, if you go back to our founding, it may not sound like much to you guys, but when we say that, our founder, in the 1920s was looking at, kids of different religions being together. That doesn't sound like much. Oh my God. Even I worked at a Jewish hospital for a while. So within my lifetime, back in like the 80s, and the reason we had to have a Jewish hospital because it was founded in like the 40s, 50s, because Jews could not get residencies. Nowadays, even if you're, a bigoted bastard, you want a Jewish doctor and accountant, let's face it, but the fact is at that time, they could not get residencies. Jews could not join country clubs. There was all that. And that wasn't that long ago. So APO has been, from one perspective, pretty good on the diversity front. However, diversity, having people who check a box is not the same as inclusion. Yeah, it's great that in 1972, we had our first Black president of Alpha Phi Omega. Yeah. Have we had one since? No. I can name for you every single board member of color we have had since then, especially the Black ones, because there's been like less than a half dozen. That's ridiculous that the numbers, how long did it take for us to get a female president? And then she wasn't all that good from what I've heard. So, you know, it's just.
What's interesting, I'll throw out, this is speaking of Blacks, I mean, we have had more Blacks on our national board now than we've ever had in the last 90 some years.
Yep. Right, and we're getting better. And the women, for a long, long time, there are more women in APO than there are men nationally, but we have only recently gotten, within the last few years, gotten to a point where the board reflects more of a 50-50 kind of thing. And I'm realizing that I need to end this so I don't impede on the next thing. But bottom line, and what I say in my challenge, the bottom line is we can do better. We've got a history that tells me we can do better. Now we just got to do it. And that's really my challenge, is not do service for XYZ organization. It's do better. Again, we are better together. The change starts with me. And that is my way of saying that. And by the way, the better together, I stole that from Candace. That's her wording. So if it's a little namby-pamby and doesn't, you know, isn't that bold, I stole that from her. And I do like it because it's a little more likely to get, because we got to get people to listen. And if it's too scary, they will not listen. That's part of the balance. But the change starts with me is my way of saying we need to get better. So I'm hoping it starts again. This has been so helpful to me. I hope you guys felt you got something out of it. I really appreciate the input. Please, when the challenge comes out, read it. And if I get some random emails, maggiekatz@hotmail.com. If I get some random emails saying, you know, just basically, you know, let me know what you think. And there might, even if there's something that's horribly off, that I'm running it by a lot of people, but I still will have some opportunities, I think. And I'm going to be, theoretically, I'm going to be out and about. So I have a platform now that I've never had before, even when I was president. So, because I'm not constrained by a lot of things. So get me any feedback, thoughts you have, up to and including, man, that was stupid, Maggie, because you know what? I got to learn. Respect me enough to be honest with me. That's what I request.
For sure. And Maggie, I think on that note, we'll thank you for your time and your thoughts. And I think, you know, we all got a lot out of this and appreciate you, I guess, the two-way conversation here. So
Yes.
Otherwise we'll end here. Do you want us to keep you on the line and take you to the next session, or what's the process here? We can disconnect or keep you on.
I'm going to disconnect, but I will go check out the thing and see, because I'm not sure if there's a good session, I might go. Otherwise I might frankly eat breakfast.
Yep. Have some.
I haven't done that.
Time. So, but otherwise we'll disconnect with you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. I really appreciate it.
Alrighty. That's actually very good.
That was great.